Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, Gulf of California, the world's aquarium, presented by Nat Hab expedition leaders Melissa Silva and Eric Ramirez. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Take it away, Melissa.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Very happy to be here once again presenting this very interesting topic with all of you. Thank you for being here. Um, so, uh, well, my name is Melissa Silva, as mentioned. I'm a marine biologist. I studied my career and lived in Puerto Vallarta for many years. Nowadays, I'm in Mexico City, but um, what I thought when getting ready for this webinar for this topic is the connection I had with this place, with the Gulf of California, because the area of Puerto Vallarta, the bay where the city is considered part of the Gulf of California, part of the influence area. That we will explain that in a moment. And well, I've been guiding for Nat Hab, working with them for about 12 years now. Most of those in the trips that we have for the monarch butterfly sanctuaries. And today I have with us is sharing the webinar Eric, a very good friend and co-worker. Eric, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Melissa, for that incredible presentation. So as you said before, my name is Eric Ramirez. I'm also a marine biologist. I actually studied in La Paz, which is the capital of Baja California state. That is in Baja Peninsula, and I'm very happy to share this very interesting topic because I was able, after I finished my studies, I worked with for like 2 years in genetics in a lab, and then I started to work as a tourist guide. And now I'm an expedition leader. I cannot be more happy to present this topic with you, Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Yes, first-hand experiences that you can tell us. So let's start first from the very beginning, from the general to the particular. Where is the Gulf of California? How it came to be what it is today? I'm pretty sure you know, all of you know where the Gulf of California is, Sea of Cortez, right next to San Diego, basically, in the States. It's in the northwest part of Mexico, on the Pacific side, and it is surrounded by 6 Mexican states, the very well-known Bajas, the peninsula, Baja California and Baja California Sur, then Sonora and Sinaloa. And back on the day, 10, 15 years ago, it was considered the Gulf of California up to here. Only these 4 states up to half of the state of right below Mazatlan area is in Sinaloa. But recent studies and more accurate data tell us that the Gulf of California is actually all the way down up to here, including Nayarit State and Jalisco State, the north tip of Jalisco, where Puerto Vallarta is, Banderas Bay, right here between 5 and 6. So, well, all of this is the Gulf of California, as you can see. Very narrow area, very narrow water body. Um, an average, if you make an estimation, is more or less 800 miles from the Colorado River Delta, which is like the northern border for the Gulf of California, to the southernmost is Cabo Corrientes in Jalisco State, and then on the outside part of the Gulf would be Cabo San Lucas in Baja. In general, the average width of the Gulf is around 150 miles. In some areas, such as this part with the Great Islands, is a little bit narrower. And of course, if we take from Cabo to Cabo, of course, it's huge, the amplitude of this. But in general, that's the average width. And the area of the Gulf is 62,000 square miles on the surface, not the volume, but the area of the Gulf. And just for you to take in consideration, this is like 3 times the area of Lake Michigan, more or less. So for you to have that perspective. The formation of the Gulf of California takes place more or less since 4 million years ago. Uh, this is because of the plates that we have, the tectonic plates that we have on this area, the North American plate here, which is the continental shelf, and then the Pacific plate on, of course, the oceanic area. These two plates are moving horizontal to each other. One, let's say, just to put it very basic terms, one is moving north, the one of the Pacific, and the one from the North American, the continental plate, is moving south. So what happens here is that they are separating at the same time, and eventually, in some other million years, the peninsula Baja, the Baja Peninsula is going to be an island. So they are separating nowadays. The basin or the canyons that we have at the bottom of the Gulf of California are part of this trench that we know as the San Andreas Fault. So this is all connected from the Gulf of California through California up to the north. I forgot the name of the area where it goes out, Montaigne Bay or something like that. But well, it's one fault altogether joining this region. And of course, because of this very dynamic area, we have earthquakes, we have some hydrothermal vents, and the depths on the Gulf of California inside the Gulf vary a lot. It depends where you take the measurement, is where the depth that you will have. So for example, on the north part of the Gulf, where we have the Colorado River taking all this sediment into the Gulf, we have very shallow areas. We have areas with 100, 150 feet of depth. And then on the south of the Gulf of California, we have deeper areas. Of course, in some trenches like this, in some canyons, we have a deep of even more than 10,000 feet. So very, very different areas, very different. We call this bathymetry, which is just like the difference of depths that we have. And as you can see, very shallow on the north, very deep on the south. So because of this origin, this tectonic origin of the Gulf, we have basically like the continent breaking and shredding apart, and we have several islands in the area of the Gulf of California. We have actually some of the largest, some of the biggest islands, which is Ángel de la Guarda and Tiburón Islands. And in total, there are more than 1,000 islands, some with people living in them, some others are just for flora and fauna. And these are more or less 50% of all the Mexican islands. So, for example, some other islands that are very well known are Cozumel Island or Isla Mujeres on the Caribbean side of Mexico. But well, we have only like two big islands over there. These ones are even more. These are 1,005 or something like that. But there are so many also islets that they don't even have names, a lot of those. So a little bit of the physical conditions that we find in the water that give us, well, all this diversity that we will mention in a moment. So this diagram, this animation on the left side of your screen give us the example of all the oceanic currents that we have in the movement on the earth. Here on the west side of the North American area, we have a cold current coming south. So you can see these blue arrows going south, going on the west side of Canada, the west side of the States. And then, of course, making a little bit of influence to the west coast of Mexico, the Baja Peninsula. Here on the diagram on your right, on the screen on the right, you can see the cold water coming down here, getting warmer. But what happens when it reaches the entrance to the Gulf, with the Cabo area, the two Cabos area? What happens here is that because of the Coriolis effect and the wind and other currents that are affecting this place, they move out, they move to the Pacific side. So what happens here is that all this water mass makes, let's say, like a suction effect within the Gulf, and we have warm water going into the Gulf of California. Of course, we have a mix of water. The deeper the water is, the colder it gets. But in general terms, we have warmer waters going into the Gulf. So as you can see on this diagram on the right, what I was mentioning, we have cold water coming on the Pacific coast, and then warm water coming into the Gulf, because, well, this dynamic, this movement of the water masses. So together with the warm water that comes into the Gulf, we have something that is called upwelling. In past webinars, I have mentioned about this. I will explain very briefly. Basically, an upwelling is when you have deep water, cold, rich in nutrients, and it is on the deeper area of the ocean, but then it encounters a shallower area. In this place, for example, Gulf of California, if you remember the depths that I mentioned, it becomes shallower as you go into the Gulf of California. So what we have is that these deep nutrient-rich waters that are on the bottom comes up, they all come up, and then you have the water coming up to the warmer areas, bringing nutrients, and hence making a higher productivity. It's like a boost for the productivity in surface waters. So what's the importance of the Gulf of California? Why we have to protect it? Because of all the conditions that I mentioned and all the physical phenomena that I explained, we have a high productivity, and this impacts the biodiversity. So we have a high biodiversity, and altogether, because of the geographic characteristics and the biological characteristics, we have a huge variety of ecosystem, and of course a huge scenic beauty. So for this, I will just mention a little bit of the economic importance and the natural protected areas, but then I would like Eric to go deeper on his experience, on what he lived there, and what he was able to experience firsthand in the Baja area and the Gulf of California. All this area, the Gulf of California, we find more or less 10 million people living on this place, living, we can say, out of the waters of the Gulf of California. This is because either they work for the people that is visiting in there, or because they are fishermen or living in fishing villages, or just like Eric himself, he was studying there, he was living there. So we have these different urbanic centers living along the coast. Some of them are very big, for example, Cabo, for example, Puerto Vallarta. Some of those are not as big, such as other areas on Sonora coastline, or the central and north part of the Baja Peninsula. But most of those have to get this, they have to take their incomes directly or indirectly from the Gulf of California. So in terms of fisheries and aquaculture production, from 75 to 80% of all the national fisheries, either by capture or by aquaculture, as I mentioned, come from the Gulf of California only. Some of the species that are fished or farmed in here are mollusk, either clam or octopus. We also have squids. Shrimp also is a huge industry, either as an aquaculture product or as a fishery. Blue, brown shrimps, crabs, and big fish such as groupers or snooks. And in this specific term for fish, we have a lot of people visiting the Gulf for sport fishing or for diving or snorkeling, enjoying this fauna. There is an estimation that in the whole Gulf of California, uh, there are more or less 6 million visitors per year. Once again, they focus mostly in the big cities, such as I mentioned, Puerto Vallarta, Cabo, Loreto, for example. So just for you to know, like what's going on with the economics and with the um, importance in this term of money for the people here. But well, what happens? We have all of these beautiful places. We have all of this biodiversity. Of course, we need to protect, because now we see that people is going there to enjoy, but also to take some of those resources, such as in the sport fishing. So for this purpose, we have several different protected areas. As in a federal level, we have about 12 protected areas, but then we have several others that are not as high as biosphere reserves or natural protected areas, but they do have certain degree of protection and conservation. Here, for example, some that I would like to mention, and I think Eric will let us know a little bit more about those, is in this area of the southern tip of the peninsula, we find a place named Cabo Pulmo. And then somewhere here also in the central part of the Baja California Sur, we have Espiritu Santo Island and protected area. And then on this area here where I'm pointing with the arrow, we find Loreto Bay and Loreto National Park. Then we have the big, the in Spanish is Área de las Grandes Islas, like great or big islands area, which not only protects the marine environment but also the land part of the islands. Then we have the Vizcaíno Biosphere Reserve that is also part of the influence area of Gulf of California. On the south part of the Gulf, we have Marismas Nacionales, in Nayarit, part of Sinaloa area, and we have Islas Marias Biosphere Reserve that I will share a little bit of what we can do over there. So all of these areas and some others that I didn't mention have certain degree of protection. Some of them have a degree, an international degree named Ramsar, which is specifically for wetlands. For example, Marismas Nacionales, this wetland area, it has a degree on the Ramsar category. The whole Gulf of California is considered within the project of Man and Biosphere program for the UNESCO since 1995. And then in 2005, the whole Gulf of California became part of the World Heritage by the UNESCO again. And someone that I want to mention that is very important and special for Nat Hab is World Wildlife Fund. They do have also certain areas, certain projects of protection and conservation within the Gulf of California. Once again, a corridor of Bahía de la Paz, Loreto, the Big Islands region, the Alto Golfo, the northern part of the Gulf, and the corridor that goes from central Sinaloa state all the way down to central Nayarit with the Marismas Nacionales area with all these wetland mangrove areas right here. So well, this is about the generality. So Eric, can you just complement a little bit with the habitats, please?
Thank you, Melissa, for that incredible presentation. Yes, so I want to mention that everything that Melissa said is I'm gonna complement it in terms of organisms, places, and also I'm going to give you the examples of the natural protected areas. So this is very interesting because I just recently moved to Germany. I'm from Mexico, but now I'm living in Germany. And it's very common when people ask me where you're from, and I tell them that I'm from La Paz, I'm Gulf of California, Sea of Cortez, and a lot of people think, oh yeah, party, yeah, spring break, yeah, or place or people from other countries. Immediately is like resorts, and sometimes people believe not only from other countries, also from Mexico, that the Gulf of California is represented by this, by luxurious hotels, but actually it is not true. Okay, it's more than that. All right, next. So I made this mosaic with a lot of pictures that I've been taking since 12 years, and this cannot explain better that what is Gulf of California. So Gulf of California, it's the beauty of landscapes, of beautiful rock formations, incredible organisms, a lot of different like spots where you can take, yes, nice pictures, but also a place where a lot of scientists moved to just to study more about this incredible place in the world. Next. So briefly, um, there are some studies from different scientists, either from Mexico or from US, who have been described what is the behavior of the Gulf of California. This is like an X-ray, okay, that is going to allow us to see deeper. So they found that we can divide the Gulf of California or Sea of Cortez, in three different biogeographic regions. So first we have in the very north between Sonora and Baja California, we have the northern Gulf of California. And then underneath between Sonora again and Baja California Sur, we have the central Gulf of California. And on the very south, we have the southern Gulf of California. This is very interesting because these regions have their specific types of conditions. They don't only have different temperature, salinity, oxygen dissolved, but also they have different organisms as well. Imagine that you have like boundaries, okay, where sometimes things cannot be mixed. In this case, for example, according to different studies, the central part of Gulf of California host the largest amount of biodiversity within these three biographic regions. And the main reason is that this place acts like a mixing zone where warm waters from the south and temperate waters from the north encounters. So creating a more stable region where also we'll find different types of islands. Charles Darwin, he described island as an evolutionary laboratories, and one of the biggest example is Galapagos. Galapagos, it is considered as one of the island with the most amount of endemic species. And here I'm going to stop a little bit just to mention that sometimes we use two terms like if they have the same meaning, endemic and native. They're completely different concepts. Endemic, it's a species that inhabits in one specific part of the world and it cannot be found in other places. And native is a species that it was originated in one specific point, but it has a different distribution. Okay, so in the case of Central Gulf of California, 10% of the species are endemic. Islands that are in the middle have more species than the other places. And this image is just telling us everything. So more you go to the central part, more and higher species of richness of species you will get. But more you go to the poles, you get less and less diversity of species. Yeah. Next one, please. Cool. So Octavio Burto, he is a Mexican scientist. When I was studying, I grew up listening many of my professors quoting his studies because he is an amazing marine biologist. He studied at the same university that where I studied, and he and more scientists mapped the whole Gulf of California, and they found that 3 main habitats comprise the whole Gulf of California. First, we have the rocky reefs, then we have mangroves, and then we have the sea sargassum beds. So 79% of the total coverage is covered by rocky reefs. So rocky reefs are very interesting places, habitat, sorry, because they serve as a substrate for many invertebrates like coral, like sponges, like other invertebrates, but also they act as a final stage for many species of, of fish. What I'm saying is that the adults are aggregating in these places where they feed and they mate. It's really interesting to mention that we have different types of rocky reefs. We have initially we have the intertidal rocky reefs, and then we have shallow, and then we have deep deep rocky fish, and each one of them they have their own type of diversity depending of the conditions of the place. These rocky reefs normally you will see them in along the Baja Peninsula, where also the as Felisa said before, where the upwellings are concentrated the most. Okay, next one please. Mangroves, the total coverage is 12%, and they're mostly in mainland, in south of Sinaloa and in Jalisco, nearby Puerto Vallarta. They're part of Marismas Nacionales. And this habitat is really interesting because mangroves have very robust, very knotted roots that serve as a shelter for different species. This is so fascinating because if you have the chance to snorkel inside, you will see many tiny organisms who are seeking for protection from other predators. So basically, they're working as nurseries, right? So mangroves are also really important because they're fixing the carbon and they're protecting the beaches, they're protecting mainland from natural disasters like hurricanes. Yeah, the next one. And last but not least, we have sargassum beds that are 9.5% of total coverage, and they're highly distributed in the northeast of the Gulf of California. Okay, why in this part? Because the water is more temperate, and this brown algae tends to tolerate cold waters. Okay, if you have seen pictures of sargassum, of course, in Cancun, a lot of people complain about this problem because they cannot swim because everything is brown. Okay, in this case, sargassum beds, they have a very important ecological role because they're in charge not only to produce the oxygen of that area, also they're in charge to provide shelter for different invertebrates, but also for small fish. Next one, please. Cool. So another type of habitat that we is not really like the principal, like the most important, but it has a very interesting characteristic are the seamounts. So seamounts, just like very simple, are underwater mountains. So remember about the upwellings, when the ocean current is hitting like something in between its way, basically it's arising all the rich water, as I said before, with nutrients to the surface, feeding from the top to from the bottom to the top all the food web. So this is very interesting because these places are hosting a large amount of macrofauna, including large pelagic fishes, sharks, whales, but also manta rays and sea turtles. Some of these places also are known as cleaning stations. I don't know if you have watched videos where the manta rays are like surrounding like a type of a peak, okay, and they are cleaned by other fishes. Well, they are basically in seamounts. So, but well, you all might ask, what happened with the coral, Eric, Melissa? Like there are not
What about
corals,
coral
coral
reefs?
reefs? Yeah, there are no coral reefs in Gulf of California. Well, that's a good question, and the answer is they're not really like they don't have really like they don't have a lot of presence, but we have Caupulmo, as we mentioned before. Caupulmo is considered as the northernmost coral reef of Eastern Pacific Ocean, which is really, really important, and it's so resilient, and we're going to talk about this in a few slides. Okay, next one.
Yeah, if you allowed me, just to make like this, the difference between a coral reef and a rocky reef.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You,
that
you want to say it? You
basically,
want me? Yeah.
yeah, just for our viewers to know, like,
Yeah.
well, you mentioned that there are some rocky reefs, and then you say that there are no
Absolutely.
coral
That's
reefs.
a really good
Can
question.
you explain to them a little bit, like, why you say this, and what's the difference between a coral reef and a rocky reef, and
Yeah,
what
the
about this?
the that's a very good question, Melissa. The key is that the amount of coral that we are going to see in the coral reefs, okay? Because sometimes we are confused in the moment that we are snorkeling and we see small patches of coral, we think that that's a coral reef. In order to be considered a coral reef, has to be a huge area with large amounts of coral of coral heads. That's what we said. Okay,
Hmm.
like what we have in Australia, like what we have in Florida, like we have in the Mesoamerican Reef Barrier as well, the second largest. So it's the amount of coral that we can find in a specific area. Yeah, good question,
Yeah,
Lisa.
thank you. Yes, okay, thank you, Eric.
So diversity, yeah, it is it is well known, and we repeat this as parrots, that Gulf of California is the aquarium of the world. And that statement was coined by Jacques Cousteau, famous French explorer. Okay, but is that really true, or we just like repeating this over and over and over again? So I hope that after this presentation, we might also have arguments to say yes, it is the aquarium of the world. So different studies that we just checked, okay, are saying that in Gulf of California we have, next one please. Thank you, Melissa. So there are 4,800 described species of invertebrates, and that includes bivalves, with mollusks, which are bivalves and mollusks, arthropods, lobsters, crabs, corals, and so on. So 4,800 described species in this area. Okay, and then we have fish. So we have 890 species of described fishes. This is very interesting because 10% of this, like around 1889 species, are endemic of the Sea of Cortez. And guess what? They're concentrated in the central part of Gulf of California, right? So when we think about endemism, endemic species, we might believe that, oh yeah, they must display the most flamboyant colors and they have to be the most beautiful and very easy to spot species. But the truth is that most of these species are cryptic. That means that they're very, very difficult to spot, especially when you're diving. All right. So now, in terms of birds, this number is not 100% accurate. We need to tell you 552 species. It is not accurate because we have resident species and then we have migratory species that spend the winter in the coast of either mainland or the Baja Peninsula as well. And then, next one, please. We have 36 species, described species of, of marine mammals. Might not be a really huge number if you compare with the rest, but it accounts 39% of the whole species of marine mammals in the world. That's a huge number, okay? And 31 species of cetaceans, of whales, okay, are also living in this area, and this is considered 1/3 part of the whole cetaceans in the world. And totals, we have 5 species out of 7. So after this, we need to say it is very diverse. It is really the aquarium of the world. And a picture of this, just to give you a bit more um, um, a better example. Yes, the next one. We brought you some images, of course, just to picture this better. So first, at the top on the left, we have of course, the most charismatic whale. Everybody knows this, the humpback whale. And why we know that? Why we know them? Because they just like to show up. They like to jump out of the water, and the humpback whales are just phenomenal and fantastic, charismatic organisms. And then on the top, at the top right, we have the California sea lion, which is very, very, very charismatic in the water. This before in the past, between the 80s and the 70s and the 80s in Mexico, they were hunted by fishermen. Nowadays, they're protected. And scientists estimated that there's around 30,000, 31,000 individuals scattered along the Gulf of California. They normally spend their lives in small islets, but also they migrate from the Gulf to San Francisco or San Diego as well. And then we have the killer whales. So once I'm giving some tours to my guests, I normally like to tell them that set the expectations, and sometimes I tell them like if we are enough lucky, we might see some killer whales, and they're like, what, killer whales? But we thought that killer whales, they are restricted by polar regions, cold waters. Okay, this is not true. Actually, killer whales are widely spread around the globe. In Gulf of California, we have a resident population, and nowadays scientists have discovered that there are different types of killer whales. And then we don't. This animal needs no presentation. This is the blue whale. This is just the largest living organism in the world. Okay, next one, please. Sea turtles. Okay, I'm not going to go deep in this topic, because if you want to know about sea turtles, there's an incredible webinar from Melissa. So you just go to click on that and just know more about sea turtles. But here we have at the top left, we have the hawksbill, and then we have on the top right, you have the loggerhead, and then on the bottom we have the green turtle, and then on the bottom in the bottom left we have the second largest marine reptile in the world, the leatherback sea turtle, and yeah, that's it. Yeah, cool. Next one, Melissa. Okay, birds. Some people know me. I love birds, especially my wife knows that. And so this is representing basically different groups of birds that we have in Gulf of California. On the top left, at the top left, we have one of the most common seagulls in the world. I bet that you might be asked for food by these ones in your life for sure. But the yellow-footed seagull, I don't know if you know, but this one is it is an endemic species from Gulf of California, and in La Paz, at least people treat them like if they were like flying rats, because they're everywhere. Okay, so if we go to the upper right, we have a beautiful bird, which is the American avocet, and this is representing the migratory species. Some of them, they migrate to overwinter in shallow waters, in salty pools, to spend the winter. They don't mate, just rest here. And then we have on the bottom right, yes, we just switched the picture. I think it was very, 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 it's like a joke between Melissa and I, because the other bird was actually a storm petrel from New Zealand. Okay, and we decided to leave that because it is better picture than this. This is an ashy storm petrel, which is from this region. Okay, but we didn't want it to leave that picture because there are not really good pictures of the storm petrels, and the reason is because they are truly oceanic species. That means that they're mostly flying around the island, and it's very, very difficult to take good pictures of them. And then on the bottom left, we have the blue-footed booby. In the past, a lot of people thought that blue-footed boobies are restricted from Galapagos. They thought they were endemic, but no, they're not endemic. They're just native. We also have blue-footed boobies, brown boobies, and very rarely we have also some red-footed boobies as well. Next one, please. Great. Fish. So very, very fast, we have the gray shark, whale shark, which is the largest shark and fish in the world. It is also a migratory species that likes to come to La Paz Bay during the winter and spring. Also, we have the bull shark, which is for many people considered as one of the most aggressive shark in the world, but this is mainly wrong. You can go to Cabo Pulmo and dive with them, and the experience is unique. You will be surrounded by so many of them. They're pretty curious. I wish I could put some videos that I took the last time that I went. It was an incredible experience. But yes, they are very curious. And then we have two different types of bonefish. We have the Cortez angelfish on the left, yes, which is, even though it has the name Cortez in the name angel Cortez fish, it is not endemic. It is native. And then we have for terms of sport fishing, we have a very luxurious striped marlin. Yeah. So examples of natural protected areas. We have, I'm gonna go over very quickly. So we have Loreto National Park. Melissa already told us the place where it's located in the map, and Loreto is basically the home of of blue whales. So if you want to see some blue whales, you have to go to Loreto National Park. It was established as a national park in 1996, and it was integrated to this huge cover of protection of all the islands in the sea in the Gulf of California in 2005 by UNESCO and proclaimed as UNESCO World Heritage, of course. Next one. And then we have obviously the jewel of the crown, Cabo Pulmo National Park. Cabo Pulmo is very interesting because Cabo Pulmo was this close to collapse. It was considered as an overfished coral reef, but surprisingly, authorities, the government, local communities, and local scientists work together in order to preserve and protect this area. And now Cabo Pulmo, it is amazing. You can see whales, you can see manta rays, you can see a lot of different fish, you can see a lot of more than 20 different species of sharks. And this picture is real, and they call it Jackfish Tornado. It's just amazing as well. Next one. And then finally, I work in this national park for 6 years. I can tell you not everything, but I know a few things about this place. Espiritu Santo, even though it is not as big as Loreto, it stores a lot of history, human history, a lot of biodiversity. And we decided to put these pictures because there are two places in the world you can safely swim with sea lions. One is in Galapagos, and the second is here. Okay, we have the second largest sea lion colony in the Gulf of California, and of course, sometimes we have the migration of mobile rays, and behind we have a beautiful school of hammerhead sharks. I feel very nostalgic for this about this picture because you cannot see this nowadays. It is very hard to see large schools of hammerheads, but this is a topic for another webinar. So
Yes.
just to yeah, just to finish, we're gonna tell you about our personal experience, and yeah,
Yeah.
and just I'm gonna pack everything in like just in a nutshell. For me, working in this place was the most beautiful experience in my life. Every day was different, and it was very unexpected. And you can either just swim with sea lions, or the next day just have a beautiful killer whale encounter, or just like dive with sea lions, or just to snorkel next by a beautiful whale shark. Melissa knows that because Melissa was also guiding whale shark trips with Nat Hab in the south of Mexico. But this experience are unique, are phenomenal, and surprisingly for me, it is just a beautiful place to visit if you have the chance.
Mhm.
Next one,
Yes,
Melissa.
and yeah, on the other hand, well, you were working there in Espiritu Santo, and I go to these places just for fun. I pay to go there. I visited Islas Marias, the biosphere reserve that I mentioned back there on the map of protected areas. So as I said, Islas Marias was not considered for many years part of the Gulf of California, neither La Tobara, San Blas in Marismas Nacionales in the Nayarit state. But in these recent years, now we consider this as part of the Gulf, the southernmost part of the Gulf of California. So in 1 year ago, more or less, in March 2023, we went to Islas Marias, my family and I. So this is a very beautiful place, a group of 3, 4 islands, and it used to be a prison. It used to be a jail, pretty much like Alcatraz. So the government just make this change of administration to become a touristic area, an eco-touristic area. So it's an adventure since the very first moment when you arrive to take the ferry. There are ferries coming out from San Blas in Nayarit State and Mazatlan in Sinaloa. So all the preparation that you need to have, or that you must have to go to these places, is you need to clean your clothes before you go there. You need to clean your shoes, the sole of your shoes, before you go there, because you don't want to take any external disease or species that can contaminate these areas. As Eric mentioned, islands are these natural laboratories where you find a lot of endemisms, a lot of species that are adapted to these very specific conditions and competitors and predators. So if you bring these external factors, it might affect in a very bad way. So Islas Marias is a very beautiful place. Check online for the trips over there, because they are limited. That's one of the very good things that these have now, that it's just a limited group of people only for the weekend. So it's a very amazing conservation project that we have now in the country. And well, together with Islas Marias is La Tobara, which is part of Marismas Nacionales, this wetland area with all the mangroves on the coast of the southern coast of the Gulf of California. That well, it has, as Eric mentioned, with the mangrove ecosystem, a very high importance in terms of shelter and reproduction for commercial species, like shrimps and fish, but also for tourism. Ecotourism in this area also is a very important one. So, well, this is my personal experience in these terms of ecotourism, to make a little bit of the contrast with the work that Eric was saying. So, well, thank you very much, Eric. Thank you.
Thank you,
Tell us
Felisa. That
about
was a
this.
really, yeah, that was a really good presentation. And at the end, we're just gonna leave you with these incredible picture that I was able to take 2 years, 1 year and a half. These are one of the oldest cave paintings that you might see in the mid part of Baja California Sur. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's another topic for another webinar.
Exactly.
Right.
Uh,
Thank you, Rob.
all right, thank you both so much. Now, before we start in with the question and answer session, I would like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your control panel. So let me ask you this. I mean, to visit these places as a U.S. citizen, will I need a passport to see these places?
You
Yeah.
want to answer that, Lisa?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just like any regular travel to another country, you need a passport. So far, we don't ask. The Mexican government doesn't ask for a visa for American travelers. But the passport is a must. But yeah, that would be it. The only like official identification that you need to present.
Great, thank you so much for that advice. So, does Nat Hab offer any tours of the Baja California Sur besides the Great Whale Expedition? Is there any other way that I could come with Nat Hab to see, say, the Sea of Cortez?
I want to answer that question. The answer
Yep.
is yes. Yeah, Natural Habitat has the whale watching camp in the Pacific, which is fantastic. seriously, it's a trip of a lifetime. If you want to do it, I think they're not have is not offering so many tours, so you have to book your tour as soon as possible. And the expedition leaders, this woman are fantastic. So, and we were talking with the office that might be really good to have a trip, an adventure here in La Paz. But let's see in the future what happens.
Yeah, we're getting a surprise maybe.
Yeah,
We're
yeah, yeah.
keeping our fingers crossed.
Yes,
Yes.
Thank you, guys. So there have been several questions about the vaquitas. Um, how are they faring now, and will we see a webinar about them?
I can answer that one, Eric. Yeah, actually, it's a very great topic. Although we're getting there a little bit in murky waters with some political topics and overfishing and international security. But so far, what I just read about the vaquita is that the scientists actually estimate less. Let me rephrase this. We used to think there were certain amount of individuals in the upper Gulf of California, but now with some very modern techniques, they estimate more individuals. So they think that they are recovering because, well, there are different efforts nationally and internationally to protect these species together with the fish that causes the bycatch of the vaquita, the totoaba, and but well, there are different factors that are affecting not only the overfishing but also the climate change, a little bit of the the less amount of fresh water that comes into the from the Colorado River because of the dams that are all over the river. So it's like multifactorial. But the latest news that I just read that came up, what, this is June, it came up like on February more or less, is that some scientists from Mexican and American universities were taking samples from from DNA in the water. There is like this very new technique to sample like actual DNA, species DNA from the water, and
It's
that's
called
how
environmental DNA. Yeah.
they knew there were more. You were saying, Eric, what?
It's environmental DNA. That's fantastic. That's an incredible tool. And you don't have to
Uh-huh.
see the species. You just take in the sample of the water and you just like
Exactly.
put some primers and then you just process all the sample. You can actually compare this with the sequences that we have in the gene bank, and then
Mm-hmm.
you you might be seeing more than what your eyes are seeing once you're doing monitoring with yeah, in situ, of course.
Exactly, and that's what happened here. That they were just monitoring by eye, by sonar, and they were estimating lower numbers than there are actually with this new environmental DNA technique. So so far we can just make a shorter answer. There's still a lot of work to do from both national and international areas, but it seems to be better than we thought.
Great. Thank you so much for addressing that. So, can you talk about what the difference is between whales in, say, New England and whales down there in California area are?
You want to answer that one, Eric? Whales?
Whales of New England.
What species of whale?
Yes, I was thinking, yeah.
Like
I,
every biology says, like it depends on the species. Yeah, but do
the
they
best answer is like depending of the species. That's the most common. Yeah.
All right,
do they
thank you. So,
mention any specific, Rob?
uh, nothing specific. I'm assuming they're talking about maybe what environmental factors attract certain types of whales to, say, a colder environment in New England as opposed to the
Mm-hmm.
warmer waters down in the Gulf of Mexico or
It
California.
is very
Mexico. Yeah,
interesting
because
because, for example,
yeah,
the
if I remember correctly, Eric, we have very similar species like the orcas, the humpback whales in the in New England area and the Gulf of California. So I want to answer that.
yeah.
Hmm. Eric.
So yeah, it is very interesting because at the end, for example, the whales are highly migratory species, and they tend to move from the north to the south. All right, and for example, the ones are there normally during the spring and summer feeding in the north. They will travel to the south, and then they will either give birth, and they will rest because the conditions in the north are not suitable for them anymore. All right, and it's very interesting because if we're talking about animals which are the distribution are in different sites, east and west, they are not going to gather in a certain point because they have natural barriers that are separating. I don't know if I was clear with that answer.
Yeah, and I would like to add a little bit, yeah, because we are speaking about different oceans. They are the same species, but is not the same population. So we do have humpback whales on that area or orcas. Those are the ones that I do know for a fact that are in New England. But we also have those on the Pacific side. We have those into the Gulf of California, but those are completely different populations. So the same, they are migrating north and south because of these seasonal changes, but they belong to different populations. So that would be like the main difference. They might have certain physical characteristics that adapt to the different environments found in North Pacific, North Atlantic, but at the end they are the same species. I don't know if I was clear and answered.
Well, thank you both. We appreciate your answers. Let me ask you this question. Can you talk a little bit about the sargassum a little bit more for those of us who aren't really familiar with the seaweed?
Okay, yes,
Sure.
I can talk about sargassum, and it is very interesting because sargassum is just a brown algae that grows on the bottom. It's attached to the substrate, but in a certain life stage, it just detached from the bottom and is drifting with the currents. And I think like that question goes directly to talk a little bit of what's happening in south of Mexico. There are so many theories, and we can have like 20 or 30 minutes of answer here, but just basically, um, algae, like vascular plants, terrestrial vascular plants, they need nutrients. So you need phosphorus, they need nitrogen. So what happens if you're adding to the water these nutrients? Of course, that the algae, in this case, orgasm, is going to grow. So what is happening in the south of Mexico is that there are a lot of nutrients that are allowing the sargassum to grow. But it's just basically a brown algae that has very small the term in like the scientific term of these structures, I don't remember very well, but they're like small little tiny like globes full of air that are they're allowing the sargassum to flow once it's detached from the bottom. That's why it floats like it's drifting with the currents. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would like to add a little bit to that. I have a webinar about algae. I already had, so you can check that one. But yeah, indeed, exactly what Eric mentioned. Those are pneumocysts, the structures that you say that the
Nemosis.
floating pneumocyst.
Nemosis,
So
yeah.
yeah, and we have a bloom because actually all of those sargassums that we can have in the Caribbean area come from outside of the Caribbean. So the nutrients are outside there, outside there. There's a bloom of the sargassum. They detach and then they move with the currents and the wind to the coast. But yep, that's uh, what Eric said.
Great. Thank you so much, you guys. So, what is the best time for us to jump on a Nat Hab trip and come down there and hang out with you guys?
So for the
Eric?
gray whales, yeah, for the gray whales, definitely from I was talking with Sofia, who's the head guide of Baja Camp, and she told me that February is the best month to see gray whales by far. I was there in March, like early March, and also I was able to see many whales. But definitely, if February is the best to travel with NatHab in that specific area
Mm-hmm.
Great.
in San Ignacio Lagoon. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, that will be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'd like to hand it back to you guys for any closing comments you may have for us.
Sure,
Melissa,
thank
you
you.
first.
Yeah, let me go first, and then I'll give you the closing comment. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Eric, for being here and sharing your experience and your knowledge. And as I always say, just keep in touch with nature. Don't forget you are part of nature. So anything that you do here will affect uh, other part of the world in terms of ecology, of biodiversity. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy this. And Eric, I go to you.
Yeah. So Melissa, thank you so much for making me participant of this incredible presentation. I just want to say that for us who travel with people and also in nature, I think it's just a great combination because we are able to share our passion about nature, but also I think the reason why you are here listening this webinar answers the question: would you like to be more conscious about the places that you're visiting? Then the answer is yes, of course. That's probably our aim, our final objective, just to try to create a sense of awareness about the places where we are visiting, because that makes us be more sensitive of the needs of these places and more conscious about the things that we can do in the future. Yeah.
Yes,
All right.
thank
Thank you
you.
both for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. Now, if you are interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, please give us a call at the number on your screen, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude today's webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next
Bye.
time.
Bye.